We saw examples in the earlier video of what to do and what your images will look like. Now we're going to look at examples of problem images. So let's look at the first table here. I'm looking at the low light or night example, and we're at F9. And look at those exposures times, 6 seconds, 3 seconds. And if you're not in focus, there's going to be a problem. And this image is out of focus. Actually, all the images are out of focus. So do focus your camera before you start working in the night. In particularly that you might want to get someone to stand in front of your camera, or you could focus on someone or yourself or something, but he's looking at a shed, and all of these are out of focus. Now we know these first ones in the day are totally in focus. That looks good. Now let's look at another problem. Remember, you're supposed to be photographing outside, not through a window. Windows don't count. And the daytime. And so this looks okay. But if you're not using a tripod, you cannot physically hold your camera for the allotted time. So you're going to have camera shake. The other example that we're going to be looking at is, let's see if I have the table. Looks like they didn't submit a table. But remember, we're supposed to have everything correctly exposed. This is too dark. Eventually, it's the right exposure, and then it gets lighter and lighter. So you need to have the correct exposure. If you don't have the correct exposure, that's incorrect. If your images are blown out or they're too dark, it's not the correct exposure. You need the correct exposure. So here, we'll look at this other example. They're at F16 and then F10. Let's see. It looks like they could be using a tripod. The text is very soft. And this is okay. I mean, we saw in the first image, correct exposure, then it gets a little dark. But the problem is, once again, at night, this is not in focus. These have to be in focus. So remember to focus your camera and avoid any of the problems. Get a correct exposure. So when we look here, if I look at the metadata to give you an idea, we're at f5.0 at 1/400, f5 at 1/400, at the first one is 100 ISO, the second is 200 ISO. He's using the same settings for the f-stop and the shutter speed. Same settings for the f-stop and the shutter speed, and the ISO is 800. Remember, your shutter speed changes. You're putting it on aperture priority, which is your f-stop. Your shutter speed will change, and your ISO are the ones that you're going to be dialing in. So your images will not look like this, and they will not be totally black either. All right, well, good luck, and I look forward to seeing your work.